Come see us on tour in Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.
All right. Another big rift in MAGA is Israel. All right. So here's Thomas Massey. You've probably seen this clip.
Yeah.
Talking about AIPAC handlers.
Buddy, but me has an AIPAC person.
What's that mean, an AIPAC person?
It's like your babysitter, your AIPAC babysitter, who is always talking to you for AIPAC. They're probably a constituent in your district, but they are firmly embedded in AIPAC. And
every member has something like this?
That's how it works on the Republican side. And when they come to DC, you go have lunch with them. And they've got your cell number, and you have conversations with them.
That's absolutely crazy.
I've had 4 members of Congress say, I'll talk to my AIPAC person. And it's literally what we call them, my AIPAC guy. I'll talk to my AIPAC guy and see if I can get him to dial those ads back.
Why have I never heard this before?
Why would they want to tell their constituents that they've basically got a buddy system with somebody who's representing a foreign country? It doesn't benefit the congressman for people to know that, so they're not going to tell you that.
All right. And here's Donald Trump talking about what he did for the Adelsons. Hang on.
He had to sometimes tell him, calm down. You just had a big victory. Let's celebrate. No, we have to immediately start. Let's see if we can do Golan Heights. How about Golan Heights? They've been trying to get it for 72 years. I got it done in about 15 minutes, okay? So. Even Sheldon couldn't believe that one, I'll tell you. Even Sheldon couldn't believe that.
All right. How does that make America great? Does that make Israel great?
You know, I'll never forget that clip of Nixon talking about the AIPAC lobby. And Israel, I mean, it's at this point, man, like, it's inevitable, man. I mean, here's the thing. It doesn't matter who you vote for. You're going to get the same result when it comes to Israel. And I don't really understand people who are so caught up on the Israel thing when you know that no matter what, Democrat or Republican, you're going to get the same result. So, you know, in my opinion, they have a powerful lobby. And I think that ultimately, unless, you know, as a group, both sides come together and decide that, hey, we want to somehow get, you know, not lessen the impact of AIPAC in politics, then there ain't really that much we can do about it. But I don't know if there's a consensus, enough of a consensus to actually get it done. I think everybody knows it, but I think there's just, I don't think enough people really agree to come together to do something about the influence of AIPAC and the Israel lobby in politics. But I think regardless, you're going to get the same result.
So do you wish we could get a different one? I mean, what are your views on it?
My views on Israel, I'm a realist when it comes to kind of foreign policy and stuff like that. So I personally think that no matter what happens, eventually Israel's just going to take all the land. And it's not about if, it's about when and how. You know, are the Palestinians gonna leave, or is Israel going to take out enough of them to eventually take the whole Gaza Strip? That's what the question is about. It's not about if, it's about when. And I just don't think that they can live together peacefully. So at this point, it's really about, do we want to co-sign that happening? And for me personally, I don't think it's worth risking a war with Iran in order to support it. But at the same time, I'm not convinced that Iran actually is going to go out of their way to stop that from happening. But who knows? Today, there was just announcement that Hamas was willing to hand over the hostages after Trump basically was threatening to essentially blow the whole place up if they don't do it. So who knows? Maybe there will be some type of ceasefire, something like that when Trump comes into office. I don't know, but I just think that ultimately, like, no matter what, like somebody's like, they're gonna, like, Israel's gonna take the land. I think people just got to accept it.
Well, this seems like an area where a lot of the MAGA base, you know, I was at Rescue the Republic this year. I was speaking at Rage Against the War Machine the day before. There were a lot of MAGA people there. It was basically a MAGA event. Most of them do not support Israel. This is something that you see in the leadership, that you see in certain elements of the podcaster class, not even all of them. You saw Candace Owens had that big falling out with the Daily Wire over that. It's something where the left and the MAGA base should be coming together to try to put a stop to it. You were saying before, MAGA will have these debates, right? And I agree with you. When you're talking about the libs, not the left, when you're talking about the MSNBC people, man, you could show them pictures of Hillary Clinton with a baby on a pizza box. They would say it's a daycare center. It would not matter what you showed them. But that's not the actual left. And MAGA will actually fight with their leadership. So why don't they fight with their leadership about this? Because from what I can see, most of the MAGA base hates it. Well, they tolerate it like what you're describing, but they don't like it.
I think you could throw me in that camp of I tolerate it because I just think that they're a more powerful country, more powerful group of people, and they got the backing of the United States, and they're going to do what they want to do anyway. So it is what it is. But the evangelical base, that's the issue on the right when it comes to the Israel stuff, because they really do believe that land is entitled to them and they can do whatever they want to do, and they can really care less about the Palestinians, especially being, a largely Muslim population. I'm not saying that, that's a form of hate and bigotry. I'm just saying that as in, like, from a religious biblical perspective, they really do believe they are the Jews, and that is their homeland and that they're entitled to it. So I wouldn't say that the MAGA base per se is, largely against Israel. I would say that there are factions on the right that are against Israel. And then there's some that, again, more evangelical leaning that are very, very, very pro-Israel, staunchly pro-Israel. And that ain't really changing because essentially 70s and 80s, there was a lot of education about Israel and how much, they're important to us and connecting Judeo-Christian values to the founding of the country. I mean, there's a whole, I don't want to call it mythology that's connected back to the founding of the country and connecting Judaism and Christianity as if we're the same when we're really not. But this is what they've done. Like, this is a whole conservative thing. So it's a hard thing to push back against, because I think so many people are just kind of set in their ways when it comes to this issue. And I really don't even like talking about it because I just don't think it's worth us being so upset about something that's, I think, just inevitable, to be honest with you.
Well, when you talk about the expansion of Greater Israel, you're not even just talking about Gaza. You're talking about now, Syria, obviously, Lebanon, and then Gaza is its own horror. That is certainly part of that. I mean, they are certainly going to take land in the Gaza Strip. I think that's a certainty. They're already talking about people in the north not being able to return to their homes like they promised them they'd be able to just a few months back. They've already gone back on that. But obviously, we agree that no matter who you vote for, the policy is going to be the same. We did not support Joe Biden when it was Biden. We didn't support Kamala when, she became the nominee for exactly that reason. I would probably disagree that that's a reason to throw your hands up and just say, well, let's not think about it. I think we should try and figure out a way to influence it. So what would you say to Thomas Massie? Does it not fall to the conservative base if there is a strain of the conservative base that feels like we do have to do something about this?
Well, it's not enough.
But what I'm saying is, does it fall to the conservative base to empower more people like Thomas Massie? Like, you guys don't just vote for president. You can primary sitting Congress people. Like, why not put more Thomas Massies in office and get the Lindsey Grahams out if you feel strongly about it? Now, if you don't feel strongly about it, then that's another thing. I would strongly disagree with you on that. I think it's a hugely important and consequential issue. But I'm just saying, even if we don't prioritize it the same way, what do you say about the project of getting rid of these old guard neocon Israel hawks and replacing them with a crop of Thomas Massies? MAGA can certainly do that if they wanted to. They have the numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear you on that. But I think that on that, rallying around that issue specifically isn't really going to work, because I don't think they care enough. I think the people that are actually super passionate about the Israel issue on the right, they kind of also they also seem to be kind of obsessed with like Jews in general, right? And just pushing back against the Jew lobby. So like when you get into that, I think that makes people uncomfortable. And I think that's part of the reason why it's more of a niche, in my opinion, I think it's more of a niche faction of MAGA that is like very like anti-Israel. And I'm not saying it's not large. I'm not saying it's not somewhat impactful. I just don't think it's enough to be a single issue in which you're like, all right, we're primary now anybody who's not on board with trying to push back against Israel and to stop the genocide. I just don't think they care that much. And I think that's the issue.
Well, I agree. I mean, look, that's just a fact. I mean, it's just a fact that, you know, if you look at the exit polls, this election, only 4% of people prioritize foreign policy in general as a top issue. So it's a fact that right now you don't have the numbers. But on the left, look, a sizable faction of the left made it a point to prioritize this issue going into 2024. Now, Kamala got her ass beat in all the swing states by a decent enough margin where that wasn't the difference maker. But in a state like Michigan, it could have very well been the difference maker. There was the Abandon Harris movement, which were Detroit and Dearborn-based Muslims and Arabs. Many of them had family members murdered in Gaza.
Yep.
Who said, we are going to boycott the Democratic ticket, whoever it is, with the express intention of costing Kamala Harris the state of Michigan and costing her the race. Like there was a faction of the left that organized around that. Now, I'm not delusional, and I'm not going to tell you that made the difference and that's why Kamala lost. But they made it a point to take on that endeavor. And I hope that there could be some organizing in some right of center circles to do the same thing. I hope that can happen.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I just think that in order to make that argument, you know, I think some of it is you have to pull back on the Jew hating, right? And I hate calling it that because I'm not one of these people that like to.
We've run into it. We know.
Yeah, we've run into it. We're
so
a couple of Jews. We're not pro Jew hating.
But I'm not. Are you guys familiar with John Milshire?
Sure. Yeah.
You're talking about Mearsheimer?
Yeah. So I kind of take his approach when it comes to Israel. I don't think from a geopolitical strategic standpoint, like it don't really make sense that we bend over backwards for Israel because they don't really offer us anything. They claim that they offer us intelligence and a presence in the Middle East, but they're more of a pain in the ass to deal with. And we have other people as well too in the Middle East that we can partner with. So I'm not one of these people that buy into this idea that we must support Israel due to, geopolitical benefits, strategic alliance, anything like that. I just think that a lot of it is just grounded in culture and just this idea that America and Israel are a representation of the West in the Middle East. And regardless of whether or not it actually benefits us, people just tied to that. And it is what it is. So, I think it can happen. I just think that it has to be a different argument. It has to be an argument about, okay, does it benefit America to potentially get in a war with Iran or to destabilize the Middle East for Israel? That has to be the argument. Do you want to go and fight and die on behalf of Israel? That has to be the argument. Not that Jews run the world and that they're controlling everything in the media. That can't be the argument. The argument has to be more about, is this best for America to continue to fight on behalf of Israel or to provoke on behalf of Israel? And that's just what it is. I mean, look at what's happening in Syria, man. With Bashir al-Assad leaving, that's a vacuum. I mean, that's a disaster waiting to happen. That's another Afghanistan. That's another Iraq waiting to happen. And, a lot of that has to do with us, being on board with, trying to destabilize other countries to benefit Israel. And ultimately, like you said, they're trying to, take more of the land and have more control and stuff like that. So, again, you have to make real solid geopolitical arguments for why is it that it's not in America's best interest to support everything they do, rather than grounding the arguments based off of the identity of this cabal of Jews that are controlling the world, because you're just never going to get people at a mass scale on board with that. That's what I'm saying.
Well, look, we're two Jews who are very critical of Israel, and we've certainly run into what you're talking about. I'm not going to deny that it's there. But what I would also just ask you, and I mean this very, very seriously, because you started this interview off talking about how your sort of social conservatism and family values oriented, cultural views led you into conservative politics. Candace Owens has spoken about this very, very well, I think. You know, she's a Christian, conservative, family-oriented person. I'm a husband and a dad, and it is on that level that this Gaza genocide is really just devastating to me. It really offends my sense of family values. I mean, the number one cohort of deaths in Gaza is 5 to 9. And by far the largest cohort of deaths in Gaza is 14 and under. It is a genocide of the family. It's a crime against the family. It's a crime against mothers and children and babies. And so is there not a conservative family values oriented argument to make in that respect? What do you think about
absolutely.
that?
I mean, I used to date a Palestinian woman. So trust me, like I've heard my fair share of, you know, the arguments and I understand like it's a very emotional thing. People are losing their families and people are dying. And there's, you know, a lot of Christians that are concerned about the Christians that are dying. There were reports about a lot of Christians that were getting caught up in the strikes from Israel, especially initially. Right. And that's why a lot of people were, you know, backlashing towards Israel. Is like, yo, you guys are killing people indiscriminately, right? You have Christians dying. It's not just Muslims dying and stuff like that. So that is an argument to be made. And I think that argument is probably more effective than I think some of the arguments that are more commonly made on the right that, again, are not grounded in that. They're grounded in other disagreements with just, you know, the Jewish identity.
Yeah, as we said, we've run into it.
Come see us on tour in Dallas, Texas, Baltimore, Atlantic City, Cohoes, New York, and Providence, Rhode Island. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only there.